Breaking today, is there a cover-up over Keir Starmer's Grindr firebombers? I only ask because it's now been revealed that these 3 blokes accused of arson attacks on the Prime Minister's property will not stand trial for a whopping 10 months. Here's the reporting from Politico. They write the trio will enter a plea hearing on October the 17th, then face trial at the Old Bailey on April the 27th, 2026. Almost a year after the fires they are accused of starting last month. Let me bring in my superstar panel now, former Brexit Party MEP and the author of the Substack That's What She Said, and Ben Habib, former deputy leader of Reform UK. So look, Alex, there's a real issue here because increasingly what we've seen with major court cases, I'm talking Axel Rudikabana, but there's a whole load of others, is that officialdom, the government, the deep state, however you want to describe it, the establishment, will hide behind these draconian contempt of court regulations so as simply not to have to cover a story, to bury a story. And so what this means with these firebombs, we're not going to know anything, Alex, until April 2026. And, sorry to just quickly butt in, but the suggestion is, Alex, that they want them to plead guilty, so it all just goes away.
Yeah, exactly. And we're constantly told that timing isn't done deliberately or cynically. These guilty pleas people aren't told to make them. And we're supposed to constantly believe that. I mean, this is such a curious story. I can't make head nor hair of it. My initial suspicion was that actually, given the nationality of the individuals, given the fact they were sort of jobbing actors, lived on the peripheries, my initial suspicion was they could potentially have been recruited by someone like the GRU, the Russian foreign intelligence arm, to try and create disruption in this country, to try and dissuade the UK from intervening in Putin's war against Ukraine. So I don't know, that would be my initial feeling. I'm less inclined to go down the route of this being some sort of personal peccadillo of Sir Keir Starmer's private life. I think it is probably more likely to be connected to them being engaged by a foreign state actor, but I don't know. The thing is, we may now never know. But also, like I said, we may never know because if it was latter, if it was a sort of personal scandal of the Prime Minister, there may have been actions taken to try and make sure that that isn't released to the public. But also, if it was known that these people have been acting as operatives of a hostile state, there might also be a national interest at stake to concealing what we know about them, which might have come out in a court case. The answer is, I don't know. We're going to have to wait 10 months and then maybe we still will not know. But for such a staggering story, it really didn't generate the sort of newspaper columns that you would otherwise expect, which always makes me think there's something funny going on, a bit like that kid who attempted to assassinate Donald Trump. Normally, you would have years and years of speculating who was it? Photos from his childhood. Here's his school friends. This is the next door neighbor. This is, you know, someone who once walked his dog with him, and they'd all be giving their own account or review. I can't even remember the man's name, for crying out loud. And so very often when things are deliberately or seemingly not hyper publicized, you have to think there's a subtext to all of this.
Absolutely. And that is the thing, isn't it, Ben Habib? The mainstream media will often bury stories. Actually, story selection is one of their greatest powers. Covering up information is one of their greatest powers. And we've seen it so much with Slippery Starmer. I'm sorry, we really have. From Lord Ali, to the truth about his marriage, to the truth about the shape of his family, to the truth about what's going on with Lady Victoria Starmer. All of this stuff has just been totally covered up by the mainstream media. Now, I'm actually with Alex when it comes to these Grindr firebombers, as they're described. But the point is, we're probably never going to know the truth. That is not good enough. How can 4 young men who all look a particular way firebomb a whole load of the, or I have to be very careful because of our contempt of court laws, be accused of firebombing a whole load of properties? And the mainstream media have just decided this isn't a story. We're not going to cover it. We're not going to dig. And what very often happens, Ben, in these cases is they do hide behind our contempt of court laws, because the same thing happened with Axel Rudikabana.
Absolutely. And I think what happened with Axel Ruder Cabana, the prohibition, even effectively, I think put in place by Lindsay, what's his name? Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker
Yes.
in
To
Parliament.
basically say you can't even ask about it in Parliament.
Absolutely, which was wrong. Constitutionally,
Yes.
the Speaker was wrong. Parliamentarians could and should have challenged the Prime Minister on what was going on. And, a critical component of the criminal justice system is shining a very bright light on things that have happened. And in the absence of that, in the absence of being able to, court papers are freely available. You should be able to read the transcripts. You should be able to understand exactly what's going on. And in the absence of having that bright light shone on things like Axel Ruder Cabana, things do go underground. Criminal activity is basically hidden from public eye, and it encourages more criminal activity. I would also say, at least in the case of Axel Ruder Cabana, if we had known what the Prime Minister, Yvette Cooper, and Merseyside Police knew very early on, and the Prime Minister had been open about the nature of the perpetrator, there wouldn't have been the kinds of protests that then took place, because everyone would have known what happened, and people didn't. So there's a lot of supposition and anger about what was being withheld, and it goes on and on and on. And of course, with the mainstream media, there is an unholy alliance, which I think you've been alluding to, if not saying it, explicitly, an unholy alliance between this kind of governance through supranational institutions, pro diversity, equity, and inclusion, redistribution of wealth. All of these underlying socialist anti-British principles seem to have infected our mainstream media, and they then apply their analysis of various subjects with that backdrop. And so it does just instantly make you suspicious about what these firebombers were all about. It's like I was instantly suspicious about that man who apparently tailgated an ambulance in order to run people over in Liverpool. And he was explained instantly as a white 53-year-old man. And it was so clear that they had disclosed the color of his skin in order to to effectively silence any speculation about the nature of the crime. But we live in a very topsy-turvy world, and I think a powerful point made by Alex is that we've got to have freedom of speech, and
we
what
don't.
we're seeing, well, we don't have freedom of speech. We've seen it, by the way, throughout this program. The underlying theme has been the absence of freedom of speech. You can trace the roots of 100%. All the debates we've had.
Well, it links to all of it. And actually, there was one thing that's just come in, and I want to finish with it because it's very interesting. It is obviously related to freedom of speech, but it's also related, I guess, a little bit to revenge. And Alex, I think you might enjoy this. Nigel Farage has been asked about Elon Musk today by ITV News in Wales. And of course, we've got to put this into context, which is that 6 months ago, Elon Musk pretty brutally threw Nigel Farage under the bus, said he didn't think that he had what it takes, I think was the wording, to lead Reform UK. And at that point, that really damaged Farage's position within the Trump administration. But of course, 6 months on, that's blown up to pieces. Farage is all of a sudden back in a pretty strong position. And let's just say, Alex, I think you'll recognise this is a question that Farage very much enjoyed answering today. What?
Elon Musk, you had a row with him.
Always good to be first. And I certainly was with Elon. I found it painful to watch. Painful to watch. Sad. Sad to leave government on those terms, to have the struggle he's got with Tesla. He's got to get, I think Elon needs to get himself straightened out pretty. Certainly was with Elon.
Alex, is that what you call revenge?
But I think actually that's just what I'd call candor. I mean, we saw Elon Musk on the campaign trail looking like there were flies buzzing around his head when I don't think there were. And it is incredibly tragic. And like I was saying earlier, to sort of when we started this conversation, I remember once being told by my grandma, if you don't want other people to read stuff. If you think you might regret it later, don't write it down. Don't put things in writing. And social media has really changed the game of people just sort of losing their common sense and their sort of cultural decorum in how to deal with issues, how to deal with fallouts, how to deal with disagreements. It suddenly becomes putting sort of verbal posters all over timelines. And I just think, come on, it's not very edifying, you know, that I think actually it'd be nice to go back to a bit of British stiff upper lipism when it comes to the way that we look at personalities and personality clashes in politics. And we had the sort of Zia Yusuf fallout, and I was like, oh, this is spicy. I was on air at the time. The next thing, it's like, hold my beer, look at what's going on in America. And it just escalated to the point of you almost have astronauts stuck in space.
And there's no going back, is there? That's the problem.
Step away from the keyboard.
Yeah.
That.
There's no going back because obviously, Ben, he's deleted the post specifically accusing Trump of being in the Epstein files, but the damage was done.
It's a shame. It's actually a tragedy for Western civilization, because
I agree.
the entire West of people like you and me and Alex, who are keen to restore our countries and to understand the importance of nationhood, making policies for the betterment of our country and our people and so on. All of us are looking at the United States and hoping that it succeeds in spades. We need the United States to succeed because for the first time in decades, we've got a president who is espousing the kinds of things that we wish to take place in our own countries. And if the US succeeds, then we can follow. And so I do hope that the spat between Musk and Trump doesn't undermine in any way Trump's, ability to deliver the United States away from the precipice of disaster, and we can all then follow that same lead. But I can say, I'll disclose now, I don't think it's, I don't think I'm breaching a confidence in disclosing this, but I had a good chat with Elon Musk a couple of months ago, 3-4 months ago. I had a 20-minute conversation with him, in which I found him to be nothing other than extremely lucid, very well versed in all the subjects about which we talked, and understood the dangers that Western civilization faced.
Did a certain Farage come up?
He may or may not have come up.
Is this potentially to get a bit of backing? Get a bit of backing for your new venture?
This was before all of that. This was just a chat on ideology, where we stood as people. And I found him to be absolutely solid on all the big issues. And of course, a 20-minute chat isn't a 1.5-hour conversation, but it's long enough, I think, to get to the bottom of it. And I think people underestimate Elon Musk if they think he's some kind of loony. Remember, he's the richest man in the world.
Oh, I agree. I think he's an incredible, incredible man. And I mean, Ben, it would be the type of backing if you were thinking about, a new conservative political force in the United Kingdom. He might be the guy you need.
Yeah, well, look, all support for anything that delivers the end which we all want, which is the restitution of our country, would be great. But I would like to do it, locally in the United Kingdom. But
do you get the sense, though? Do you get the sense that he is done with Reform UK now? But first, being sleep deprived makes you perform as poorly as someone legally drunk. These deficits include slowed reaction time, reduced working memory, impaired decision-making, and poor emotional regulation. Poor sleep is also a stronger predictor of early death as smoking. In fact, people with highly irregular sleep patterns face mortality risks on par with heavy smokers. Desperate to fix this, most people turn to melatonin. But here's the problem. Melatonin is not a hormone, not a vitamin, and most supplements give you doses 10 to 50 times higher than your body would ever naturally produce. It's actually a prescription drug in many countries. These super physiological doses throw off your body's natural rhythm, affect your body's ability to produce melatonin naturally, and lead to side effects like morning grogginess and hormone disruption. Worst of all, melatonin isn't even regulated. Independent lab tests found that actual melatonin content in melatonin products can vary by up to 464%. So basically what this means is you don't know what you're getting. This is why I use Evening Being by Verso. It's melatonin free using a blend of clinically studied, patented ingredients shown in multiple human studies to calm an active mind, help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and improve deep and REM sleep without messing with your hormones or leaving you groggy the next day. After taking Evening Bean for a whole long time, I have to say I fall asleep faster, I feel sharper the next day. It's so good. And actually, one of their customers left a review, this is how good it is, saying they were able to get off Ambien, which is a heavy sleep pharmaceutical drug. So click the link in the show description or head on over to evening.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken at checkout to save 15% on your first order. Try Evening Bean tonight, wake up feeling refreshed tomorrow. That's evening, the word evening, .ver.so/outspoken. Use the coupon code outspoken to save 15%. But now, back to the show.
Elon Musk.
Yes.
I think he was done with it in January. The issue for him then was the lack of recognition by Nigel Farage that Tommy Robinson was a political prisoner.
Yeah.
It came back to free speech. The Americans really understand the critical importance of free speech. And it was clear to them that the incarceration of Tommy Robinson on a civil charge was effectively making him a political prisoner. And it doesn't matter what you think of Tommy Robinson. It doesn't matter whether you think he's the Voldemort of politics, the Voldemort of all division in society. It's academic. He was incarcerated because of political reasons. And it was vital that those who want to champion free speech saw that and called it out for what it is. Just like the restaurant episode with Tommy Robinson just now. It doesn't matter whether you like or hate the man. It's the fact that he was thrown out of a restaurant when he wasn't behaving badly. These are things we should all be very concerned about.
And you've made some news just then, Ben Habib. I like that a lot. But also, breaking right now, Alex Phillips, desperate to get your reaction to this. Andrew Pearce in the Daily Mail has just revealed that David Bull will become the new chairman of Reform UK. Now, I think David Bull is an incredible man. And if this report is true, Alex Phillips, as I say, this has literally broken in the last few minutes. This would be a coup, wouldn't it, for the party?
Well, it looks like I'm getting up early on a Saturday and Sunday. If there's a breakfast slot up for grabs, I better get used to a morning alarm at 3:30 and no more Friday night drinky poos. No,
Because
look,
David Bull would have to quit Talk TV, presumably, right?
I would imagine, because being chairman would have to be a full-time job. David has been champing at the bit to get back involved. He's had FOMO, as do I, if I'm honest. You know, I'm sort of hands are tied at Talk. They say, you got to pick a lane. You're either a broadcaster and you bring objectivity to the table and you can deliver breaking news and analyze political stories as even-handedly as possible, as you've seen, I think, with the clips you played of my reporting on Reform UK, is what I try to do. But it is difficult for me sitting there and watching, a movement that I've been part of for 20 years reach such radical heights and kind of wanting to jump into the fray and get involved. So if it is David Bull, it is well deserved. I am such a huge fan of his. He is so hardworking. His integrity is incredible. He was deputy leader with Richard Tice of Reform UK, kept that party ticking over tirelessly without any public recognition for years. When Nigel Farage came back and he was disavowed of his duties, he humbly took that decision quietly and continued to support the party and has done all that he can modestly and with great magnanimity behind the scenes. And so if they have picked him to uphold that position, I can't think of a better character. But we don't know. Look, Andrew Pearce might have got it wrong. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's quoting Alex Phillips, a Reform source, saying he looks and sounds good and he's been out and proud for years, so we have no worries about any skeletons in his closet. Now, Ben Habib, you were obviously the joint deputy leader of Reform UK with David Bull. Do you think this is a good choice?
I think David is a first-class individual.
I do.
Absolutely kind, gentle, caring man. And I think it would be terrific in any organization to have him chairing it, because he will pour oil wherever he sees troubled waters. And so I hope that he will help reform on its way in a very, very positive way.
Yep, I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with that. I think, Alex Phillips, if you could say, and obviously we did play what you said earlier on in the show, if you could say that there was a lot of division coming from Zia Yusuf, David Bull is the opposite, right? Like, he's a people person, he's a total unifier. Everyone loves him. And
Everyone.
I think this is a great choice.
Just to make clear, I wasn't sitting in those Reform Party offices when arguments and spats were taking place. I don't know. It has been suggested to me that there had been some sort of clashes and disagreements. But look, I don't know. But when it comes to clashes and disagreements, you would have a lot of trouble actually having a fight with David Bull. It would be like trying to fight a teddy bear. But at the same time, he is so loved and respected and intelligent. I mean, the man's intelligence is off the charts and he's dedicated. And like I said, he is magnanimous. He really fights for the cause. When he was disavowed of his duties as deputy leader, he just went, right, I'm going to go back to my broadcasting show. It is correct that Nigel came back. I didn't win a seat, so it's correct I don't have this particular office. And has quietly waited and watched. And if he's deciding to take a monumental decision to step back into the fray, which will mean sacrificing, I would imagine, I don't know, but I'd imagine it will mean sacrificing his broadcasting career, which he equally has poured so much energy into. Nobody understands how much hard work David puts in behind the scenes to curate his show. Then again, it's testament to his character that he is a dutiful servant for this country. And I adore that man.
What a show we've had. What a show we've had. So much breaking news, but I adore you too. Thank you so much to my superstar panel, Alex Phillips. Follow her on That's What She Said, her brilliant Substack. And Ben Habib, businessman, former Brexit Party MEP, former deputy leader of Reform UK, and now chair, I can't forget to not to mention this because I love it, chair of the brilliant Great British PAC. Thank you both so much. And now it's time to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. A reminder of your Union Jackass nominees. Narinder Kaur, nominated by The Grift Report for race baiting online and calling herself an English rose. Dawn French, nominated by Barnack 1, because of her apology, just like Lineker, for an anti-Jewish social media post. Zia Yusuf, nominated by Scotland A23 for resigning from Reform for a weekend. And he said, I wish I got such a celebratory response for turning back up to work every Monday. Just before I bring you the results, which I'm looking for now, let me get some comments from you about the show. Where Seagulls Fly posted, I feel like a yo-yo. I am not normally indecisive in this way. I voted Reform UK, then disliked what they did to Rupert, then Zia left and I thought I could vote for them, and now no thanks to Zia. Although maybe David Bull will bring a few people into the mix. Colin posted, it's interesting that Lee Anderson seems to keep his head down for the most part. Pom said, just shows the Reform two-tier system. We love Zia, who is a twat, but Innocent Low is not welcome. Barbara Clevery wrote, the only Reform members I would trust are the two who have been expelled. And Jean Phillipson said, Alex Phillips has been extremely rude about Ben Habib. Thank you so much, by the way, to Susan Grove, who joined Outspoken Plus during the show. Thank you, Susan. Hello, that gets you first access to our members' videos. And also thank you so much to Simon Brandy for the super chat, who wrote, let's be real, if Zia endorsed the ban of the burqa, it'll be his lot threatening him, not the far right. Tice is the worst part of Reform Week. So lots of interesting feedback coming in. Let's get to the reveal of your Union Jackass. In third place with 21% of the vote, Narinder Kaur. The runner-up with 34% of your vote, Dawn French. But going along with the theme of today's show, your Union Jackass, Zia Yusuf, with a whopping 45% of the vote. Greatest Britain Time Now, nominated by Music Mum in Shoes, and it's Tommy Robinson for holding Hawksmoor to account for discriminatory behaviour. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.